What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Batman News Weekly. This is episode 15 of season 1. We are winding down the year. This is probably one of the most consecutive things I've ever done and actually put out, although they're getting put out on Saturday sometimes, I will say that. But you know what? We're doing pretty consistent here. And yeah, it's been a good week. We have a lot of news to talk about. But Clay, first things first, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. You know, today was a little bit of a slow day, like it's always been for the past forever. But we actually had like a surprise like potluck apparently, and they brought us food.
Okay.
So we
Nice.
didn't have to go get lunch or anything. I brought spaghetti and I completely forgot it in the fridge. I just remembered that.
Oh, I've done. And you're offered there the next 3 days?
Yep.
Yeah. Ouch. All right. Yeah, no, of course that happens on the day I'm not at work, of course. But luckily, you know what? I didn't have to buy anything yesterday, so I'm kind of cool with it. But yeah, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I know you don't care about that. You want to hear Batman news. Well, we have some of the biggest and most, probably the most talked about this week news. And we're going to clear it up for you, because if you're not somebody that if you just read headlines on Twitter or you read I literally saw this in PewDiePie. He was like, oh, Joker's getting a sequel. And it was in his video. I was like, no, he's not. Like, God, read the headlines or read the articles.
I know, for real.
Yeah. So just like we're saying that, guys, if you've been seeing this Joker sequel is a go at WB headline or any variation of that, yes and no, I guess. Let's just go ahead and break it down from step one. The Hollywood Reporter, who has a very good track record of breaking news, said that Joker 2 is in the works and that Todd Phillips has plans for, I guess, the Black Label, pretty much, right?
Yes,
Is that the gist of the article?
Basically saying that he has pitched to WB several different DC villain stories. Now, that was the first story that came out pretty early in the day. Like, first thing in the morning, all I saw was Joker 2, Joker 2, Joker 2. Mm-hmm. And I
got it sent to me by a friend. He was like, yeah, it's happening.
I even retweeted it, and I was like, man, this is unfortunate. And I know a lot of people were like, what are you talking about? It made $1 billion, blah, 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 blah. And we've said it here on the podcast before when we were talking about how when, you know, the review that we did and then several conversations afterward, we are in the boat of not necessarily wanting a sequel. I'm pretty sure, And so when this news hit, it was just like, I mean, if everyone, Joaquin Phoenix, Todd Phillips, everybody else, cast and crew, is saying, okay, fine, let's do this, then okay, then that's what I want. But if it's WB saying, Todd Phillips, you have to make a Joker 2, and then Joaquin Phoenix says, yeah, I'm out, then like it's not gonna be worth it. And I've heard some crazy things of like, oh, but what if they started making all of these Black Label Joker stories and it's all a different Joker every single time? That's gonna be kind of annoying.
Yeah, no, I would definitely hate that idea. I don't like the idea of a sequel, period, because I thought it was a great story that should have stand alone. And I love the idea that it broke $1 billion without having 10 years of build like Endgame
and
or any other
without
franchise. China. Yeah, and without China. That China easily adds like $100 to $200 million. Yeah. So this thing could have $1.2 billion right now. And I loved it. And it is the highest grossing superhero movie of all time.
Highest grossing comic book movie as well.
So, like, I love that everything is dids, but it sucks because, you know, Hollywood it just sees the money. Doesn't care about anything else. Doesn't care about the creative direction, anything like that.
And that's the thing. Money talks. Money definitely does talk. And I understand when people are saying, hey, let's go ahead and make a sequel for other movies, you know, that are like, you would never expect there to be a sequel. But if they see that the general audience loved it enough, they're going to try to push a second one. That's just how, like, we need to understand, and people need to understand, that Hollywood is still a business, and they're in it for the money. So that's what it is.
Yeah, and that's why everything gets remade and no original ideas come out, because you guys don't go watch original ideas. You just want to see the nostalgic stuff and the same thing over and over. But anyway,
prime example, Disney Plus.
Yeah, exactly. But so I'm not a fan of the sequel, but again, I wasn't someone that was a fan of the first one. Like, I didn't want it,
Yeah.
but, they proved me wrong, and they're like, yeah, here it is. It's a great movie. And I'm like, yeah, I'm stupid. This is a great, amazing movie that I didn't want, I didn't need, but I'm glad it happened. But anyway, so that aside, a couple hours after this report happens, Deadline, another reputable Hollywood source, says that this is not the case and that Todd Phillips hasn't pitched anything and there haven't been talks about a black label DC film, banner or anything, or just, I guess, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Universe. But yeah, so that's two really reputable sources contradicting each other. So at this point, I mean, even in an interview, like even in an article on BatmanNews.com, they were like, well, I guess it kind of just goes up to who you want to believe more.
Yeah.
Because they're both so solidified. This isn't like comicbook.com and we got it covered,
or Bleeding Cool. Like Bleeding Cool.
Yeah.
Now we have been getting a whole lot of information comics wise from Bleeding Cool that has been correct. But once upon a time, Bleeding Cool was one of those websites where you're just like, we'll wait until Hollywood Reporter says something.
Yeah, exactly. So this was very interesting for me and Clay. We were like, okay, well, we know what we're talking about on the podcast because there's two contradicting reports and, we can kind of just go back and forth on this. Well, we don't need to do that because it turns out that Todd Phillips has actually responded to this and he has denied the reports of a Joker sequel. So I have the actual article pulled up here, and this is what Todd Phillips has said to IndieWire. I can honestly say that there was no meeting ever that happened on October 7th where I marched in, and he's referring to marching into WB and talking like, hey, we got to make these movies. He said, first of all, if you know me and my career, that's not my style. I made a huge comedy at Warner Brothers, The Hangover, and I didn't suddenly become a comedy factory producer like, just churn out movies. Bradley Cooper and I have a production company at Warner's. I've been at Warner's for 15, 16 years. We have 2 things in development at all times, not 40 like some other people, which, if you're ever curious on what he's meaning there, is there's a lot of people like Tarantino or Spielberg that have their names on everything because it sells. And that's those are just their production companies. Tarantino might be not the same one, but I do see his name everywhere. So, but there are a lot of people out there that just put their name on everything to make the money, which, not gonna lie, I'd probably do the same thing if I had money just to throw around. Like, that sounds like a cool idea. Here's some money. I'm a producer now. But you know what? That's Phillips' things here. And then he says, I'm not that kind of guy who goes marching in and says, I have these 40 titles. I just don't have the energy. And then going on to talking about whether the sequel is happening or not, he says, well, a movie doesn't make $1 billion and they don't talk about a sequel. Joaquin Phoenix and I have publicly said that we've been talking about a sequel since week 2 of shooting because it's a fun thing to talk about. But the Hollywood Reporter article was referring to other things that were frankly untrue. I don't know how it gets started and if it's an assistant trying to gain street cred with a writer. Here's the real truth about a sequel. While Joaquin and I have talked about it, while touring the world with Warner Brothers executives, going to Toronto, Venice, and other places, of course, we're sitting at dinner and they're saying, so you thought about it? But talking about contracts and there's not a contract for us to even write a sequel, we've never approached Joaquin to be in a sequel. Will that happen? Again, I just think the article was anticipatory at best. So basically, Todd Phillips is saying that, of course, people at WB are talking about it because it's made $1 billion. If something makes $1 billion, why wouldn't you why wouldn't you capitalize on it?
Basically, think of this as, you and a good friend, are hanging out and you're wanting to go see said movie. And they're like, oh, well, I don't have any cash on me. And then walking down the mall, you freaking find $20 on the floor. And he's like, hey, you got $20 now. You got $20 now. You want to go see that movie? You want to go see that movie? You want to go see that movie? That's basically what WB is doing to Todd Phillips. They're like, hey, just so you know, you made $1 billion. Yeah. Like, you, and also, with all of this talk, with Joker possibly not really getting a sequel, talks of all this and that, reports have shown that he contracted at the very beginning of the development of this movie Joker that he was going to get 10 to 13%.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
thinking that at best it would probably make maybe double, maybe.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
came
That's
out of
insane.
that with $100 million.
That's insane. And that means Bradley Cooper probably gets a cut of that too, which is nuts.
Yeah.
Because he was because his name was in the credits.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's their production company. So yeah, I mean, why would this movie? I haven't looked at the numbers recently, but this movie has almost made $1 billion in profit because it only cost about 62.5 billion. I mean, million to make.
Yeah.
So if this thing ends up finishing at 1,062.5, it literally makes $1 billion in profit, which is insane. So why the hell wouldn't WB want to do this or try to make other crazy movies like this? Now, I think me and Clay have talked about this on the podcast. If not, we've definitely talked about it in person. But if they are going to start doing other movies like this, we don't want them to all be like the Joker because it's perfect for the Joker. I don't think any other character can pull off movies like this. Now, we do want to see stuff like Gotham by Gaslight and Red Sun and those type of movies.
Yeah, we were talking about that at work. Yeah.
Those movies would be really awesome because you could still make them as dark or gritty and not have to follow like a DCE universe or whatever. And I think people would love those things. You can cast a black Batman if you wanted to do that, or you can cast a black.
Yeah, and kind of like how I was saying, the only reason why DC or WB, well, technically DC, the only reason why DC should go, or any director, producer, whatever, should go to Warner Brothers saying, hey, I want to go on this black label superhero line, is if that story cannot 100% be in a connected universe, then throw it on there. That's the way I think of this. Because if it can be connected in some sort of because here's the one thing that people tend to forget. We heard about a Trench movie.
Yeah. I still don't want that.
No, but the thing is, now we have outlets like Black Label, and we have outlets like HBO Max. So that Trench movie could easily just be thrown into Black Label and not necessarily connect, but kind of. Because it was a concept. It was a concept from a DCEU movie, but they just throw it in a Elseworld Black Label story, and it stands alone.
Yeah. And we are. This hasn't been confirmed, but apparently, and I'm really, really hoping this is the case. Steven Spielberg's next movie is supposed to be Black Hawks, and no, if you don't know what this is. It is basically just like a World War II kind of movie. It's a group of...
If you want to know more, Juice actually has a video on it.
Yeah, I do have a video on this on my BATfromtheBOX channel where it's just basically, a band of misfits that are, in this wartime just epic, and they are going out and killing Nazis. And it's really awesome, but it also, can be... If you do it in the vein of Saving Private Ryan... in a DC universe, this would be amazing. If you want to tie it into the DCEU, you could have a Wonder Woman sneak peek or cameo, which would be really amazing because she lives forever. I mean, we just heard, and we'll be talking about this in a little bit, Black Adam is going to have the JSA. You could have the JSA make a cameo in Black Hawks to tie it to the DCEU, or you can just say, fuck all that, and make a Black Label Black Hawks movie, which would be really awesome.
Having a timepiece like that would be great.
Yeah, and I think, DC would be dumb to not make I would call it Elseworlds. Don't even call it Black Label, just call it Elseworlds, because that's a title everybody knows, and it might bring, people interested in reading comics, because they're like, what is Elseworlds? And then you go to a comic shop and be like, oh, this is a whole shelf of Elseworld books.
And then I'm going to go ahead and say this, because it definitely helps that Disney Plus and Disney right now is developing a what if story for Disney Plus. This will give a lot of general audience the idea of, okay, this is what would have happened. So it's playing on that concept of the what if Elseworld thing. Because right now, HBO Max is not a thing yet, and it doesn't really seem like WBDC is really planning on doing that kind of thing. But
Mhm.
if this Black Label does, move forward and start to turn to something, I would love for it to turn into a Elseworld label.
Yeah.
And the Disney Plus audience would be like, okay, this is just like Disney's What If or Marvel's What If. Let's go see it. And that would bring a whole other audience into the theaters.
Yeah. And if you wanted to do an end game type thing in 10 years or whatever, after you've fleshed out the DCEU, you just do a multiverse story. It won't be like the one in the comics, but you could be like, look at all these different worlds out there and show clips from every freaking movie.
Yeah.
And be like, oh my God, could they all be in one movie together? And boom, there's your end game freaking type movie right there. Like, on your left, Batman. Oh shit, all these people are coming out of nowhere. You know what I mean? But like you could do
See,
something
I
crazy
would
like
really
that.
like it would be really dumb, but if all I hear is on your right, Batman, and you just like instead of on your left, you just see on your right and it's all these freaking heroes, that would be
Yeah.
funny. But
You know what? It would be on your right, and it would just be like Damien. Yeah, I'm here. That's it. Like it would just be just Batman and Robin against the universe. Like that's what they would do. Like, what do you think? We need a whole army of people to help us beat these guys?
oh man.
That would be a big FU right there. But yeah, so we wanted to go ahead and clear that up for you guys, ladies and gentlemen. There's at the moment are no plans for a Joker sequel, so you can just brush that aside. But just know, if you are in hopes, if you are somebody that wants a sequel, there's probably like a 60% chance this is going to happen. But I think Joaquin is somebody that cares about scripts, and so is Todd Phillips. He knows he's not going to want to just throw out another movie. So this is something that you probably, if it is going to happen, won't happen for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 years maybe, because they're going to want to make sure that people would actually like the sequel, because I don't think they know that they're not going to be able to top it, so they need to make it just as good. So, yeah, I don't know. That's kind of everything on that. But moving from Joker to another DC movie, and this is these next few things we're going to kind of run through really quickly because there's not a lot of information. But Suicide Squad, coming from James Gunn himself in one of his like Instagram stories that he constantly does, or actually I think I saw this in an article that was taken from that. It might have been an Instagram comment. You should follow James Gunn on Instagram. That's all I'm saying, because he gives a lot of information about his movies.
He's very active on Instagram.
Yeah, for sure. But he said that Suicide Squad has the most practical effects in any of his movies, and I think he might have said all his movies combined. So
That's
that is
crazy.
pretty insane. Yeah, because granted, I mean, when you're doing a Marvel movie, it is like CGI 90% of the time. So, every explosion, and he was in space. Obviously, all that has to be CGI. But with Suicide Squad, it could be possible that we're going to be getting real explosions, real costumes, real everything. And I'm kind of down with that. I mean, Star Wars has proven that practical effects is the way to go. And even in Suicide Squad, the movie wasn't great, but they did practical effects and it looked awesome. Won an Oscar.
Yeah.
All I'm saying. But yeah, so I'm glad that James Gunn is going with practical effects in this movie. I'm pretty sure WB was like, we're not going to do that CGI shit. So, make sure you plan this out to be practical effects. And James Gunn says this is his passion project. Like, this is the one thing he's wanted to do. And so I'm really excited to see what he's going to do. I know that, what's his name? Joe Kinnaman, is that his name? That is playing Rick Flag? Or is it Joel? Is it Kinnaman? Is that his last name?
I think so.
I forget his last name. He said that it's the funniest set he's ever been on, or his funniest movie, and that kind of scared me.
Like he did make the statement, it feels like my first comedy. That was his one big comment that everybody were like freaked out about.
Yeah, but I am hoping that it's just the scenes he's in, because we have a theory that a lot of the people that are rumored in this movie die in the first 5 or 10 minutes of this movie.
Yeah.
Like, we're thinking it's going to be a big mission. They're all going to die, and Amanda Waller's going to be like, crap, get the old team back together with a few new people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, that's when you'll see Harley and all these other people show up. But, yeah, so maybe they're just shooting a really funny scene right now because, Rick Flag works in the army still. Like, that's his job. That's his career. So he would be doing, he would still be in the Suicide Squad watching over these people. So maybe all these new people die, and that's what he thinks is so funny. And then we'll get a serious movie. Again, if you are somebody that is scared by that, you're like, oh, I don't want it to be like Guardians of the Galaxy. Go watch Super by James Gunn. That movie starts off like an indie crazy comedy, and it ends so serious that you're just like, wow, I cannot believe this movie just ended that way. So, yeah, I'm really excited for Suicide Squad. I can't wait to see what happens. Also, he did make a comment that he didn't talk to Matt Reeves about who's going to be in his movies or whatever, and like he wasn't told he couldn't use anybody or anything like that. So then maybe there'll be a few surprises. But that'll be pretty interesting
Crossing my
to see
fingers for
where
Mr.
that goes.
Freeze. Crossing my fingers.
That would be awesome.
Crossing.
By freaking Peter Capaldi.
Yes,
that's definitely who I want.
I'm crossing my fingers.
Yeah. So there's some Suicide Squad news, and then going on to, I guess we can talk about Black Adam a little bit, but as it is related to Batman, if you are a fan of Joker, which we just talked about, the cinematographer for Joker is actually going to be shooting Black Adam. So if you liked all the shots in there, you can expect Black Adam to look pretty as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's going to be pretty cool. Clay says that we got some information, though, about Black Adam.
Yes, we had a Screen Rant actually talked to the man himself, The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, and he gave a little bit of insight, but he confirmed that we're actually going to be seeing the JSA, the Justice Society of America, in Black Adam. Now, this was something that was rumored more so because we heard that it was going to be a Black Adam Hawkman fight movie kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was more of, kind of the people that have been really, really in depth trying to figure out what this movie is. We have heard some rumors that this is going to be a Black Adam origin story that's going to be moving through time to pretty much get him to the present day because, of course, we eventually want him to face off between himself and Zachary Levi's Shazam. Now, it has been said, I believe earlier this week or even today, that there isn't a set movie that Shazam and Black Adam will face off, but they are in talks of course, doing that. They are planning for it, but there isn't a definite oh yeah, it's going to be in the second Black Adam movie. Oh yeah, it's going to be in the second Shazam movie. It's not set in stone, but they are working towards that. So it is something to be excited about. Because of course, there's no way DC wants to get rid of those kids yet. So they have to make another Shazam movie quickly. I know that there was a Shazam 2 rumor. We're the two dates that WB had said that their superhero movies were going to be put out. One of them was Aquaman, one of them was Shazam, and I believe that's in 2022. So
and I don't think WB had a date scheduled for Black Adam. I think that just came out of nowhere.
No, it is. There is a date for it.
There was a date, I know that there is a date for Black Adam now, but when it got announced, I don't think
when it was announced, no.
Yeah,
but within 3 days or so after they announced it, they had said that it's going to be in 2021. So it is going to be in the same year of both Suicide Squad and Batman.
Yeah. And don't be surprised if DC goes to the 3 movie a year style. I know Marvel's about to go to 4 movies a year, right?
Yeah.
Or something like
in
that.
2022.
Which will be insane. But because we do have Birds of Prey coming out in February, and with that, if it does well, apparently they want to fast track a Batgirl movie. So I would assume Batgirl would come out as early as 2022, which would make it the 3rd movie in that year.
Yeah.
But we'll have to wait and see how that goes. I'm just really hoping that whatever Reeves does, he's branching out the Batman universe, and we get Nightwing, Batgirl, etc.
For
there's
sure.
that. Speaking of Nightwing, though, we got a sneak peek for the Titans show suit for Nightwing. Clay, you are the Nightwing expert here. What do you think?
I'm actually kind of upset.
Really?
I'm upset because I wanted to see it in the show. We had seen the very blurry pictures about maybe a month or 2 ago. They were all really, really far pictures, so we couldn't really get a big a high res photo of it until today. And I was just scrolling, and then all of a sudden it was boom, right there. And I was like, no! Yeah. I was so mad. I was I wanted to see this in the show. But
you were a day away from it.
I was so freaking close because I had already seen another suit that we are going to see in the episode that drops basically on the same weekend as this show is going to be
what's her name, right?
Ravager. Yeah. Deathstroke's daughter.
I don't like how that mask looks.
Yeah, it looks
Not a
weird,
fan.
right? It looks really weird, but it has like a bandana style, but because of the like fabric, it just looks off. But I am super excited about this. And of course, you know, whenever it comes to Nightwing and his suit, what's the one thing everybody wants to look at?
Yeah, they showed his butt.
They showed his butt on the Titans Instagram story, and they actually put an arrow and said, of course, the most important part. And it showed, and it was on a mannequin or whatever. But I did have to laugh about that because both Tom Taylor and Nicola Scott, who is very famous for drawing Nightwing's butt, she made a joke about it as well. Really excited about this. This is something that everybody who is a fan of the show has been looking forward to since the very beginning of season 1, when it was already announced that this was a Robin story turning into Nightwing. So
which a lot of people thought we were getting it in season 1. So you know, it's interesting that, you know, people have been holding on. They have been confirmed for season 3 already. So we will be seeing a lot more of the Nightwing suit in the future, and apparently a lot more Titans from what's been teased, which is pretty awesome. I will say that I finally caught up. The reason why we've never talked about Titans on this podcast lately is because I was not caught up. I was 3 episodes behind. Finally caught up, and we found out, or Clay had told me in advance, but they changed the origin of Nightwing, and it is a Latino origin. So I'm totally down with that because we don't get shit. Although I'm really hoping we get Blue Beetle at some point. Wait, is that rumored for next season, right?
It's rumored. It's rumored for next season. Yeah. There was a stunt coordinator for Titans that posted a picture of Titans season 3, and he had pictures of Wally West, Roy Harper, Red Devil, Blue Beetle, Bumblebee, and there was one more. Because there was 6. I can't remember who the 6th person is, but.
Yeah, I don't know. You said Bumblebee?
Yeah,
right?
Bumblebee, Miss Martian,
Blue Beetle,
Wally West,
and Red Devil.
Red Devil. There was one more, though.
Oh, I don't know. Somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever. But yeah, so there's going to be branching out. Does that mean people are going to get killed this season, or does that mean we're going to have a bigger thing? There have been rumors that Hawk and Dove might get a spinoff. So that might be something where, you know, it goes off.
I was going to say maybe they leave the team, but, you know, they're still alive. I hope they're still alive by the end of the season, dude. Like, I will admit.
No, they better be, because Dove is big.
I am very much enjoying everybody on the show. Now, there are speculation that, you know, they have been teasing something bad will happen. So, like, there's speculation that at least 1 or 2 people will die at the end of the season. I really hope not, because I'm actually enjoying every character in this show. So,
yeah, no, I really like it too, and I really can't have Dove die. She almost died last season. I was like, no, my babe. So I don't think they'll do her like that. And I just love seeing her, like her smile and her personality in that show. I fucking love her. I love Donna too. Unfortunately, her storyline's not so happy-go-lucky this season. But yeah, I'm just Titans has been a lot better. Little less Raven, and I'm golden with that show. Yeah. So that's what's going on in the entertainment news. Sorry, we're not talking about Batwoman or anything going on there. The crossover's coming up. We did see a sneak peek of Kevin Conroy as Bruce Wayne. It wasn't really a fantastic photo.
It was just literally his shoulders and up was the picture.
Yeah, and he had like a collar around it, so I'm assuming he is the
Kingdom Come.
What is it? Kingdom Come, freaking Bruce Wayne, and maybe he'd get a bat suit. That'd be kind of cool.
Like an armor. It would be like an armored bat suit. Hopefully,
like if you just see him put on the thing, and maybe he dies. That would be a cool way to end that series. Like he gives his life for this thing, you know. Yeah. Maybe he saves freaking Arrow, and like because freaking Amel ruined it, saying that there's gonna be a happy ending somehow. So I was like, well, damn, guy. Yeah, he said that every Arrow friends would be happy at the end. So he's probably going to survive somehow. And, you know, him and Olicity is going to be a thing at the end of this. So
that's kind of lame.
But, yeah, I don't know. If Kevin Conroy were to give his life to save the universe and in a bat suit, I'd be 100% down with that. But we're going to go away from the entertainment news and we're going to jump over to comics. And we're going to talk about Justice League, which didn't have a lot of Batman in it, but it had a big Batman contingency plan. Which, if you don't know what's going on in Justice League right now, basically the heroes have just been totally just dunzoed. They are gotten their ass
They have
kicked
been
as bad
mopped.
as, yeah, they have been destroyed and they are beaten. And pretty much they've even said, they're like, we got no chance here, guys. Like, so we're just going to fight and yay, hopefully we win. But yeah, what did you think of the issue overall, Clay, before we talk about the actual
I actually enjoyed
contingency
this.
plan?
It's really hard for me to get super excited about DC Comics right now because of the rumored 5G, and a lot of these stories are a little bit stale. But, you
Yeah.
know, one thing that Scott Snyder is really good at is the term "go big or go home." He lives by. I feel like every single one of
Yeah.
his stories has really high stakes, and he's always trying to one up himself from each issue. Sometimes that gets annoying because sometimes it's just like, dude, when are we going to be able to breathe? When do these heroes get to take a break? But,
Yeah.
I do know that eventually there's going to be that high climax of the story. And whether he sticks the landing or not, we'll see. We don't get the ending of this story until January. But this story overall was really, really good. I liked how Perpetua did all the villains dirty in this issue.
Yeah.
Literally made Brainiac furniture. To quote
Mm-hmm.
Gorilla Grodd, he made him fucking furniture. Um,
Yeah.
but it is really, really on the nose for the contingency plan because they teased it in the
Yeah.
very beginning of the issue, talking about, and we'll say it right here, it deals with the actual embodiment of the Hall of Justice. And the whole thing about the ending of the story is Lex Luthor got the go ahead from Perpetua to storm the freaking Hall of Justice with all of these apex predators. And of course, what does he use? He uses the classic dome of the Legion of Doom headquarters as a ship
Yeah.
to go fight it. And Batman's like, okay, you want to bring your headquarters to us? Well, I might as well fight with my headquarters. And out of nowhere, he
Yeah.
makes the Hall of Justice freaking lift off from the ground, and it's now a ship.
Yeah. And one thing we should say about this is what they tease at the start of this is like they're talking about stone, and it is the lightest stone known to
Like,
alien races or
I think
anything
he
like
said
ever in the galaxy
I
universe.
think he said universe or multiverse, one of the two.
Yeah. It's the lightest rock in existence.
Oh, okay.
So, and you can just assume that it's the strongest as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Batman, had Superman bring all of this, and they built the hull out of it. So it is a spaceship, freaking made out of probably the strongest, lightest stone in all of the universe, and all the multiverse is what I should say. And yeah, that's how it ends. This thing just ends with a crazy Batman contingency plan, and we've just this is what I live for. It's just this is what Batman does. He does the most ridiculous stuff, and you're just like, yeah, that's Batman. Because he doesn't have superpowers, he doesn't have anything else. He says it in this book too. He is the smart guy that comes up with a plan, and at the moment there are no plans. And that's what I've always loved about Batman. He's never given up. He tells them literally, he's like, this is time for a speech. Like, I guess I got to give a speech now. And he tells everybody that yes, this is the future that has been shown, because if you're not reading Justice League, they have seen the future already.
Yeah.
And they know they lose. So they are basically, the future is happening exactly how they saw it, and they know that they're all going to basically die or end or whatever. And Batman's like, all we can do is just keep fighting, and that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. And like the whole point is that like Lex Luthor, they have always fought him as this evil villain that is, just pure evil or whatever. And
Yeah.
Superman says, what we need to do is just fight and fight and fight to show maybe the human side of Luthor, because he's technically a hybrid now, the good human side
Yeah.
of Luthor, that, humanity is still worth fighting for and we're still good. And, just show him that piece of humanity that is going to keep fighting for justice. And hopefully
Yeah.
that'll turn the tables. Now, the really cool thing that if you're not paying attention to this issue, it's really easy to skip, is the fact that Martian Manhunter, somebody who has been absorbed by Lex Luthor, is actually talking to Lex throughout this whole thing with the villains being captured by Perpetua. So I like how finally we're getting something from Martian Manhunter since he's been absorbed like 6 months ago. So
yeah, which is gonna be what eventually turns the tide.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you can see that from a mile away. He'll end up breaking out of Lex, and Lex will go back to being normal or whatever the case is. But yeah, I don't know. So I thought the issue was cool. I mean, it ended on Batman having a crazy ass contingency plan, so I'm happy with it. But moving on from that, we're gonna go to issue number 4 of Batman and Superman. And it was funny because I went to the comic shop. I actually got this issue, and it has Batman Who Laughs right on the front of the cover. And I was like, ugh. I was like, God, I forgot about this guy. And because as I've mentioned it so many times on this podcast already, I just had enough of Batman Who Laughs, and we had a whole conversation at the comic shop about this. But I'm just like done. Like I finally feel how non-Batman fans feel every time they're like, Batman's so OP, he has a plan for everything. I'm like, yeah, he has a plan for everything. And then freaking so does, Batman Who Laughs just outsteps
I was
Batman
gonna say
Superman a billion times.
10 steps ahead of Batman. So
yeah, and it's annoying. So I get how those fans feel now, but I still don't care because Batman's the best. But I'm just tired of freaking somebody being ahead of Batman so much. But what is happening in this issue, if I'm not mistaken, how did this start off? Oh, the last one ended with Blue Beetle showing up, and he had just turned into being one of the evil, I guess, what do they call them? The Justice League? Dark
They
Knights?
call them the Infected, but these individuals are being called the, what is it called? It says it at the very end. They call themselves
the Secret
Six, which I'm pretty sure is a team from Marvel, like way back in the day.
Is it?
I'm pretty sure.
I don't know, because there was going to be a show that CBS was going to make. That was it. It wasn't. No, isn't Marvel the Sinister Six?
It's the Sinister Six, but
yeah, I think DC has the Secret Six.
Really?
I think that's theirs because there was it had like Catman and Bane and all these other. Oh,
is that the original Secret Six?
I think so.
It is. Okay, yeah. You're right. You're right.
They tried to reinvent it a few years back with the ventriloquist, the female version,
and
like some of those characters. So yeah. So yeah, the Secret Six. So we actually get all of the reveals in this actual issue, which is crazy because as far as we knew, we only knew of Shazam and Gordon to this point, and then of course the last issue ended with Blue Beetle. Then we ended up seeing Donna Troy, who's also infected, Hawkman, and then of course we'll find out later in the issue, Supergirl, which makes up the whole Secret Six. And so basically this whole issue is kind of a fight. It's everybody's trying to infect Superman. He's supposed to be the main key from Gordon is the one explaining all this, and to infect the whole world and make them all Batman Who Laughs type people or all infected, they need to have superheroes with certain frequencies or something like that, certain energies.
So if you remember back when Dark Knight's metal was a thing, there was a plan because we all knew that Batman was missing, and they finally found him. They had a hunch that he was taken to the dark multiverse, and Superman said, I need to go to the dark multiverse and I need to save Bruce. How do I do that? Well, they had this really big contraption that Mr. Terrific, Mr. Miracle, and a whole bunch of other people helped Superman get to the other side, to the dark multiverse. They actually reference this in this story right here. They're using the exact same machine to take a satellite, aka the dark multiverse, the dark multiverse watchtower, to come into this universe, and that is what will create basically the dark versions of everybody. So I do like that callback. So Joshua Williamson, I'm glad you're paying attention and you're putting all that stuff. So it was actually really, really cool to do that. I want to say again, because I'm sure me and Juice will both say it constantly throughout this series, Marquez on art is still so fucking awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
I want to see him get on a main Batman title.
I would really enjoy it. Or a main Superman title that's not written by Bendis.
Yeah, which we don't know when it will ever get. But yeah, so like I said, this whole thing is just, the whole issue is pretty much a big fight. Like the whole issue, Batman rides a worm to try to help out and like actually fight
and I actually
Donna
wanted
Troy.
to talk to you about that. So
Okay.
Um, we always hear references of the Batman animated series.
Mm-hmm.
These, if you ever see these exotic, crazy, freaking aliens in the Fortress of Solitude, this is actually a reference to the Superman animated series when
Oh,
there
really?
was a collector type character that
Mm-hmm.
wanted to collect both Superman for being the last Kryptonian,
Mm-hmm.
and he also wanted to collect Lobo for being the last Zarnian. I think that's what they're called. Uh,
Yeah.
and there was all these other alien species that were the last of their kind. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually they beat that bad guy or whatever. And Superman had no place to take these aliens, so he was like, "Hey, I'm gonna take all these aliens to the Fortress of Solitude, and I'll take care of them because they were endangered species around the galaxy."
Oh, is this the same? Well, like, does he show this in that episode where Wonder Woman and Batman are going to give him a
Yep.
gift, and like that little plant got out and like got on his
Yep.
chest? That's the same thing, right? Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah, I remember seeing he has like this big ass like terrarium or kind of thing where all these things are living.
Yep.
Yeah, that's insane. But so, anyways, Batman and Superman are getting their asses kicked by this Secret Six, which is not all of them, and they sent out like this sonar or this alarm that
Yes.
only
So
Kryptonians can hear.
so Gordon was like, "Hey, you know what? If you're not gonna agree to get infected, then what we're
Mhm.
gonna do is we're gonna set off these Fortress of Solitude alarms that only Kryptonians can hear." And even Donna, the infected Donna's like, "Oh, who's gonna show up? Is it gonna be Supergirl? Is it gonna be
Yeah.
John? Like, who's gonna come? Who are we gonna have to kill for you to be on our side?" And
Yeah.
you know, I didn't even notice them like actually turning it on. So when
Mhm.
Supergirl actually showed up near the end, it was like, oh crap, I almost forgot about that. So,
Yeah.
and she comes in one of the most badass ways, helps Batman,
Mhm.
but then also they're about to infect Superman with this batarang just coming up at his face, and Supergirl catches it like a boss.
Yeah.
And then it shows one of the coolest panels. This panel where it has Supergirl in the middle and Batman and Superman on each side
Mhm.
is probably my favorite panel of this
Yeah.
entire issue. And then immediately
Mhm.
after is probably the most like a detailed, awesome picture that it's like you see a little bit of the veins around her eyes and her
Yeah.
hand is bleeding. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah. And she starts throwing
Yeah,
up.
she just starts
And
hacking this crap up, and Shazam comes out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden she's infected.
yeah, and her infected design is awesome.
I really
Like I like it.
now I enjoy it. I really like it. That panel, I don't
Mhm.
like how it is drawn with all of them in the background, but the detail
Yeah.
on both Batman and Superman in that panel are really nice. I really enjoy that.
Yeah. That would be actually I want to see the black and white version of this. I want to see how this looks because I would buy a panel from this. Like the Supergirl panel is really
Man,
good. Have you looked at them yet?
I have it like you're gonna tip me to look at his freaking page. Dang it.
So if you guys don't know, me and Clay both have bought Marquez. What do they call proofs?
Artist
Where it's only
proofs.
one of a
Yeah.
kind. Yeah, artist proofs. They're one of a kind of the pages, and these are the things that basically get scanned and then get made into the comic books. I own this awesome panel of Batman and Gordon on the roof with a bat signal. It looks beautiful. Clay owns the Jokerized
The Jokerized
Batman.
Superman, he like busts through the
Superman.
wall, and you see the Batman who laughs, you see Joker, but you see Superman, but
Yeah.
my favorite part of that whole page is actually the Batman that's underneath, and
Oh, the
where
thinking.
he's like
Yeah.
thinking and he has his fingers
Yeah.
touching. That is probably
Yeah.
my favorite part, but just seeing that awesome Superman on there is actually really cool.
Yeah. No, it's really great. So we often look at Marquez's art because this is like 150 to like $300 worth of just like pages
Yeah.
and stuff. And every time we see his stuff, he releases
And
it.
yeah, he said every single time an issue will release, he will also release the artist proofs for it.
Yeah, so
So
these are very tempting. But they look I don't know, it looks pretty amazing and I can't wait to see some more of his stuff. But yeah, I mean, Supergirl, her catching that thing was just it was awesome. And I mean, this is kind of stepping away from what we talk about a lot talking about Batman, but that is how you write badass or you show badass women characters. Like just have them do awesome shit like that.
yeah.
Like it's so
And I
good.
will also say the one thing that has been a big gripe between both me and you with this whole
Mhm.
entire series. I know we're only 4 issues in, but we've had an
Yeah.
issue with this for every issue at least once. there has been some cringy dialogue. And honestly,
Yeah.
there wasn't a whole lot in here. Like, I don't remember a
No.
specific point where I was just like, ugh. But
Yeah.
like, because there was a time where Batman and Superman were talking, and they're like, "Oh man, like we're not gonna survive this. Are you
Hmm.
sure?" Like Superman was saying, "Batman, like when was the last time you sparred with Diana?" And he's like, "Oh, well,
Yeah.
I've done it once or twice." And he's like, "Well, how
Hmm.
did that turn out?" And he smirked and said, "Oh, I was beat to crap, but at least I
Yeah.
survived."
He said he had bruises for months, and he was like, "I had bruises for months, and I think she was holding back."
Yeah.
So
And there was a
like that was
small
really
smirk,
cool.
but like for me, that is like I felt more of like, oh, that is Batman like Batman from Justice League Unlimited. Like that's how
Yeah.
I was like kind of like okay with it. And it played out well.
Hmm.
I really
Yeah.
enjoyed that. So
Yeah, there's Batman doesn't always need to be brooding. It needs to make sense when he says the things that he says.
yes.
And you can't just have him be like, "Oh yeah, if I was in this fight, I'd be better." Because that's stupid. Like 'cause Batman doesn't underestimate people. But that's banter with Clark, they're best friends, and Diana is their best friend as well. And so he's like, "Yeah, when's the last time you fought with her, man?" And he's like, "Ah, she kicked my ass last time, bro." Like that's basically what it is. Um but yeah, so I enjoyed that issue. Again, I'm not a big fan of the Batman Who Laughs, but I like where this story is going, and the art was amazing, and Supergirl's freaking just saving them. I was talking to Turk about this, I think, but this issue, the Supergirl showing up was very BVS Wonder Woman showing up to
Yeah.
save Batman's ass. That was really awesome, and so yeah, that was really cool. But now we're gonna go on to a one shot book that is, I think, pretty interesting, and it is the Von Freeze, which this is actually from Batman White Knight. It's Batman White Knight presents Von Freeze. Now, this is written by Sean Murphy, but not drawn by him. It is drawn by Klaus
Yeah.
Janson and Matt Hollingworth. I think that's how you say his last name. And yeah, so this book was actually really interesting because it was supposed to be a part of White Knight. And Sean Murphy, I don't know if you read the ending, the epilogue at the back.
I did
He says
not
that he
read it.
just didn't have enough time.
Okay.
Yeah, so he just didn't have enough time, but he really wanted to make the story. So he was like, let me just put this in between, Curse of the White Knight and consider it a one shot. And it shows Batman and Harley. So they're actually like really, I guess they're friends at this point because she's wearing her jester outfit, just not wearing the mask. And at the end of it, he gets like this heirloom from his father that, Freeze had. But the whole story is basically the origin of Von Freeze. Because if you guys didn't read Batman the White Knight, we found out that, freaking Mr. Freeze was a Nazi, or at least his father was a Nazi. And so you're just like, oh crap. And like, apparently his father actually helped the Nazis with like freeze guns and stuff.
Yeah.
So it was a really crazy story, and we got the whole origin of that. And yeah, what were your thoughts on this, Clay?
Because when I asked, hey, is this a necessary read? You said yes and no. So I was like, okay, I wasn't 100% with this book because whenever it comes to White Knight, I fully expect Sean Murphy's art. Sean Murphy's art
Yeah.
is absolutely amazing. This did not super impress me, but once I started getting into the story, I got used to it, and it really fit the story well, just because of how
Yeah.
dark the story actually is. So
Yeah.
we see that, of course, he did grow up in Nazi Germany, and his father and this guy Jacob were
Mhm.
they were scientists that were making cryo medical type uh, 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 inventions,
Yeah.
experiments,
Yeah.
and it actually is why or how Bruce was safely uh brought into Earth.
Yeah.
Brought into life is because
Yeah.
Freeze von Freeze was actually able to help Martha with her complicated birth. So,
Mhm.
or complicated pregnancy. But it was actually a really interesting story. Whenever I saw that Victor's father like started working with the Fuhrer, I was like, oh, like because I,
Yeah.
I saw they're like, oh, okay, this is very interesting. I wonder what's gonna happen. And then like he turned his back, and I was like, how dare
Yeah.
he? Like
We
this
should
is
point out that Von Freeze's friend, who that he was doing scientist with, is Jewish,
yes, that
and
was the
so
big
like
thing.
that's the big drama
And
of this
and
story.
so the whole point was that okay, now I'm going to pretend that instead of just hiding you, and be a criminal. I am now an officer and you were my slave, but not really. And for a while it was actually working, but then, things started going sideways. It wasn't working that well. They tried to escape, and the power got to Von Friese's head. It clearly did.
Yeah.
And they got into this tussle with a camp that was outside the city, just making sure that they, quarantine the city from Jews and all this. And, it goes sideways. Jacob gets shot. He ends up dying. And he tells Victor, hey, make sure and promise me that you'll take care of this child. Promise me that you will take care of Nora. And I was like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah.
And so, Von Friese actually, feels bad about the whole situation. This was his friend for the longest time, helped him with so many experiments, basically helped raise his child. So he decided, you know what? I'm going to help everybody escape. I'm going to actually help everybody escape, which he does in the most badass way ever. He freezes everybody in that platoon or whatever, in that platoon.
Yeah.
And
he freezes Nazis like they should be.
He freezes all of the Nazis, and then at point blank range in ice shoots them all dead. I was like, oh,
yeah, no, he
snap.
shoots. The one he shoots is one of the soldiers was actually denying him.
Yeah.
So he was trying to. They actually get caught. All the like Jacob and his family get caught, and of course Nazis are like, take these Jews to the camp and all this stuff. And he's actually, Von Friese actually shows up. And he's like, hey, these guys escaped from my scientist lab. I need to bring them back. And he's like, no, we're taking these as a quarantine people. He's like, I'm a commanding officer. He's like, no, the Fuhrer will hear about this, blah, blah. So his like little cover is not working. And so that is the guy that Friese shoots first, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it is.
He actually takes the gun away from him and just blows his head off. And so I thought that was really cool.
And it jumps back, when they finally escape, it jumps back, because this is all a flashback, of course.
Yeah.
And now we see an adult Nora. We see an older Victor talking to Thomas because he works with Thomas now. And Thomas gives him this pocket watch. And he says, well, just because, this is something that you deserve. And the whole thing about this is that Victor gives this to Batman at the end of the story. Now, I know that Murphy says in the epilogue that this is something that was supposed to take place in White Knight. I don't remember that pocket watch being there, but my thing is, what if the pocket watch is something that he wants to play with in the Curse of the White Knight, because we are getting a whole lot of history of the Waynes. Maybe that is some sort of heirloom that we will learn about later.
Well, that's the thing. So, okay. So, hold on. I'm going to read the epilogue because I want to make sure, because he says it in here somewhere about this actually takes place between, I think, 6 and 7, if I'm not... Okay, so, Sean Murphy. P.S. I originally intended this story to be part of Batman the White Knight Volume 1, but I ran out of space. So think of this one-shot as deleted scenes that falls between issue number 6 and issue number 7 of Batman Curse of the White Knight. Something secret about Mr. Freeze. So it's actually, that's how it references, because it can't really tie into the first book, because Batman's sitting with Harley here, and Harley's and him are like friends now.
Yeah.
So they weren't really friends in the first.
But see, the thing is, for me, if that's the case, I think they released this at the wrong time. Now I understand Victor Freeze, Von Freeze, fall, winter. It's the end of the year. I can see how they wanted to do it. But I think they should have probably released it between 6 and 7.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I guess that makes sense. What issue are we on now? 4?
We are on issue
5?
I think 4. I think. So
yeah.
We'll see.
Oh, well. I'm pretty sure we'll be talking about that next week or 2 weeks from now.
Yeah,
because it's been a while.
I think 2 weeks from now. Well,
yeah,
actually...
That series has actually been good.
I think it's next month, actually. Because
Is it monthly?
It's monthly, I think. Is it?
I don't think we've talked about it in November. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
Because Yeah, because we had Barbara possibly getting paralyzed
Yeah,
at the end of
I
that
think it
one.
is monthly. Holy crap.
Yeah. So it's been a while. But from that, we are going to move on to Batman 83, ladies and gentlemen. This thing is, in my opinion, awesome. But of course, as always with this story, we're going to let Clay talk first because Clay is the one that always has issues with these books.
Now,
So, Clay, go
and
ahead and say your
here's the
piece.
thing. Here's the thing. Here is the thing. I can't even speak. Episode 1 of Batman News Weekly,
Mm-hmm.
and now episode 15 of Batman News Weekly, we're finally getting the, like, I guess the emotional
Answer?
answer to what
Mm-hmm.
all of this means. Whether it
Yeah.
be, of course, with Batman, with the Bat family, what this means for the Bat family afterward. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so we get this book. Very first thing, Bruce just wakes up because, of course, he had passed out from being shot in the last
Yeah.
issue. He wakes up and he realizes immediately that Alfred is across the table and dead. He freaks out. He
Mm-hmm.
runs towards him, cradles him. He's crying. He's very emotional. Throughout this whole thing, though, we get some words from Alfred. And we can
Yeah.
always assume when things like this happen, these were probably his last words.
Yeah.
And he just wanted to jot them down for Bruce because it says he's quite possibly not going to make it out of this whole situation, this whole city of Bane. He's
Yeah.
not going to make it out alive. And, it's very emotional. Bruce covers him with his cape. He, starts to get angry because it says on the wall, "You are not Batman." He tries
Mm-hmm.
to get out of the room. There is a brick wall just right there where the door is, and he starts punching it. He starts, kicking it. He just wants to get out. He's so angry at this whole situation because I'm going to make a Guardians of the Galaxy 2 reference here. Thomas may
Mm-hmm.
have been his father, but Alfred
Mm-hmm.
was his daddy. Like,
That was a good reference to put in there. Okay. I'll give you that.
So, of course, Bruce is so emotional. He throws the table. He I don't know if you've ever been this emotional before where you don't know what to do. And what you're going to
Yeah.
do is just let your body just you're going to scream, you're going to yell, you're going to throw things. And this is exact because I can 100% say that this is probably what Batman is thinking. He has lost his dad, he has
Mm-hmm.
lost his father, and he doesn't know what to do. And so
Yeah.
he finally, is next to Alfred, and all of a sudden, boom,
Mm-hmm.
the brick wall explodes,
Well,
and Catwoman is just standing there, and she says, "He is ready for you." They walk through the
mm-hmm.
door. You see the Bat family, and you're like, "Why are they all like stoic and stuff? Why aren't they saying hi?" But then you see, of course, Psycho Pirate right next to Thomas Wayne and the ventriloquist, and he says, you know, "This, are you done with this? I've got your
Mm-hmm.
woman, I've got your family, you know, this needs to stop. Is it done?" And,
Mm-hmm.
Batman is looking all stoic, looking down, he looks up and he says, "It's never over."
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's just not. With Batman, with these heroes, whether it be Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, whoever, the fight is never done. That is just
Yeah.
something that is, just iconic. And he says,
Mm-hmm.
"You will never stop, and neither will I." And then it says, "Next, the secret history of Thomas Wayne." Now, I did
Yeah.
all of that explanation, but in reality, all I could have said was, we already knew that Alfred died, and then
Mm-hmm.
Batman sees his dad again. That's the entire issue. Now, of course, there's a lot of emotional stuff that Tom King is putting in that whole sequence with Bruce. And don't get me wrong, if you're invested in this story, it's gonna be emotional. I was invested in this story, and it is emotional. But my problem is 15 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
That is how long it has taken to get to this emotional spot.
Yeah.
And it just didn't hit me as hard as Tom King probably wanted it to. And so that's the one minor thing that I have. to be completely honest, is I'm reading this. I can see how people are probably getting the feels, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, I already knew that Alfred was dead,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't even say, oh, well, you were assuming, because at this point, they've already said, and we've already talked about it in this podcast, maybe 2 episodes ago, that they were
Yeah.
making a Alfred RIP.
Yeah.
So it's already been confirmed. Literally, the only person who doesn't know is Batman. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, yeah, I want to know how he feels, how he's going to react, what that situation is going to be. But it just, in my mind, did not hit as hard as it probably could have. And,
Yeah.
like, I almost wanted, like, instead of just that one room by themselves, I almost think it would have been better if they were in this room here where they ended
Mm-hmm.
and Batman was like tied up and he wakes up, looks to the side and looks at the other chair and Alfred is there. So that way you get
Mm-hmm.
interaction with other people and he gets to like yell and actually like show this emotion. And you could still get that narration from Alfred,
Mm-hmm.
but I still want there like cuz for me, like yeah, there's at that point there would be a lot going on. So you would kind of look at Alfred's words as like, I could read that later. But
Yeah.
I feel like that would be more of like a oh crap moment. Like, oh, this is
Mm-hmm.
like really getting to me because I could read everything that's going on in that room. And then afterward I'd be like, okay, let's just read the Alfred stuff. And then that I feel like that would have hit me a little bit harder.
Okay, I could see that, and yeah, that's a solid point. I personally think the him being trapped in the thing is a little bit better in my opinion because I think Tom King wants you to focus on Alfred's words, and that's why you don't have, I guess, what you just promoted. Where everything else is going on, and I thought it was pretty solid. Like I loved that. Granted, we talked about this at work, so the thing that sucks about us finding out RIP is already a thing is that's the one downside about comics. The one thing about comics, if you are somebody that actually reads them week to week, and you are somebody that follows stuff on social media or follows, writers and all this stuff, they promote their comics weeks in advance because they have to. They need you to buy the next one. So more than likely, you're gonna get spoilers. You're not gonna see that same thing from directors. You're not gonna see that same stuff from TV producers and all that stuff. They're not promoting, well, unless they're working on Gotham because they needed people to watch that. So they promoted that crap and gave you all the spoilers all the
Or
time.
Spider-Man Homecoming.
But yeah, same. But for the most part, comics is really the one medium that, unfortunately does spoil big things in advance because it needs you to buy those next issues. And, for some people that are like, I'm done with Tom King's run because I haven't got the answers, they have to promote this. They're like, oh, yeah, look, we have this book coming out in 2 months that is so and so's or whatever. You know what I mean? So that is one downside. And I will say that I agree with you there that it is unfortunate that we do get the answers before we actually see it in the book. But I did make this kind of point because I know Clay said that he wished it's been 15 weeks or whatever since we actually got the answer. I've told Clay the way I read comics, this isn't for everybody, but I read comics as how you would watch a show. And I think specifically with Batman, there was 10 issues, if I'm not mistaken, right, Clay, of the Nightmares. It was 10 issues. So that's where a lot of people dropped off of
I
Tom
think
King's
8
run.
issues. Like, it wasn't exactly 10.
So
but
it was close. So there was all these issues of Batman being in this nightmare trance. And the way I read that is that happens in one sitting because he's tied to this machine and they're pumping drugs into him or anything and he's fighting his way out of. That would be one episode in a season of a show. And that is how I read these comic books. So whereas you can look at something in real time where people are like, that took, X amount of time. I totally understand that. But I guess the way I read these books, the way I enjoy them is like if this was a TV show, like I'm just like, oh shit. And there have been plenty of great shows that end like episode 2 or 3 end on a cliffhanger, and you don't get that answer until episode 6 or episode 7. Like it's just a way. It depends if it's usually shows that have a lot of characters, like The Walking Dead, right? The Walking Dead usually does that. Like if something crazy, it leaves you on a cliffhanger with Glenn, right? Glenn was huge.
Yeah.
We didn't get that answer for like 4 episodes. Everybody's like, what the hell? They took his name off the credits and everything to make you think he died. Like, but everybody loved that shit. You know what I mean? So I guess I can totally see where you're coming from. You make a solid point with that. But I guess just in my opinion, with my mentality of reading it like a show, I had no problem with it because I knew we were going to get that answer. Again, even on this podcast, we were like, is he alive or is he dead? Like, you know what I mean? Like, because I loved that in those issues of 78, 79, we were like, oh, Alfred's not dead because he phoned Bruce, so he's alive. That's awesome. And now we found out in this story that Alfred actually did that purposely. He lied to Batman because he was like, I need him to come over here. I need him to be Batman. And there's no way for me to escape. He thinks I can be safe. I can't be safe because, Thomas Wayne has thought of everything. There's no way I'm escaping this. So I'm just going to play my part just like the way Batman would play his part. And I'm going to say that I'm okay. Damian's going to come in. He's going to do his whole thing. And we're just going to keep this ball going because he is Batman. He will rise like he always does. And he will save the day. So that's where it kind of hit me. Because you know what? Like, the ending of this is like, one thing Clay didn't mention, the ending of this comic, it's actually Batman stepping to his father saying, it's never over. You're never going to give up. I'm never going to give up. He's like, let's do this one more time, father, for Alfred. Personally, and I'm hoping this happens in the next issue or two, that Bruce tells Thomas to his face, he's like, you're not my father. Alfred was my father.
Yeah.
That's what I would have preferred.
And that's one thing that I wanted, that I absolutely want. Because here's the thing. Here is the absolute truth. Thomas Wayne is from a different timeline. His Bruce is dead. His wife is dead. Bruce is from this time. His dad is dead, and his mother is dead. Now, in some psychotic way, because let's face it, like Flashpoint Batman, since the very beginning of Flashpoint, has been seen as psychotic. He is not right in the mind. He is thinking that this Bruce is his responsibility, which is kind of driving people mad, but it's part of his character. And so I really want that to be addressed. I want Bruce to say, hey, you are not my father. You are just some, psycho from a different timeline that for some reason thinks that it is your job to take care of me and your job to rule my life, and that's not going to happen. I really need that to happen in either the next issue or the last issue.
Yeah. Personally, I think if Batman just admits to Alfred being his true father, I'll be happy with that. Because I guess the way I see it is, when it comes to Bruce, like, although I think Bruce knows this is genuinely not his father because he saw his father died in front of him, he's just like, wow, like, I could finally talk to him, I never got to say goodbye or whatever. That's how he sees him. But I think, he's so smart that he knows it's not really his father. Even Damian's like, you're not really my grandfather. You're just some guy, blah, blah. You're not Batman. You know what I mean? But I think, just for sanity's sake, I think Bruce is just like father, father, father. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's just kind of how I see it. But I am hoping just for the honor of Alfred, that after Batman finally kicks, Flashpoint Batman's ass, that he's all like, now it's time for me to go bury my father. You know what I mean? Like my actual father, Alfred, or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of hoping that, Tom King would say it here on the last page instead of the for Alfred thing. But if he has a bigger moment where he's all like, my father, blah, blah, I would be totally cool with that. But yeah, like I said, I enjoyed this issue. I had mentioned it on this podcast before that Thomas Wayne, I thought, was the bigger bad than Bane. I think Bane was just a puppet, and they even had that, cover of, Thomas Wayne being the puppet master to Bane. And I want to see what's going to happen. I think in the next issue, we're going to get all of the answers because it says the secret history of Thomas Wayne. We should find out the whole thing with Skeets. We should find out how he got there. We should find out why he's doing this, blah, blah, blah. And if we don't, then that would be a big misstep by Tom King, who I've been in his corner a majority of this time. There have been some dialogue choices and some things that I would have preferred to be done slightly different. But for a majority of this, I've loved his stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think it's been a solid story. It's not like when I read Superman 6 and then didn't read anything till Superman 12 and nothing had changed. You know what I mean? I feel like there's been story here, even though you made the comparison from, our first episode to episode 15, that we haven't got reveals. A lot still happened in that amount of time, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
Wasn't.
But just with that individual thing with Alfred being dead or not. And
Yeah.
you were right. We said, hey, if Alfred's not dead, it's a cop out, and it's definitely not a cop out. He actually killed him. So bravo, sticking to it. And I tell people all the time that have this argument of like, oh, it's going to be a bad idea for Tom King to kill Alfred. It's either Tom King kill Alfred now, or Bendis kills off Alfred with 5G, with aging him so old where he's going to die of old age. Now, do you want him to die of old age, or actually die in an actually meaningful story? So
Yeah, and at the same time, to those people that complain of like, oh, there are no stakes, he writes with no consequences, he just gave you a huge-ass consequence, and if you're bitching about it now, well, then what do you want? What do you want? He literally killed a big character in a story, and he's staying dead.
Yeah.
And like, so, and if you're upset about that, then I don't know what the hell to tell you. You know what I mean? Because I feel like at times, because it is comic books, anybody can bring this back. I'm sure after 5G fails, which is our prediction, there's going to be some crazy cosmic event that resets everything back to New 52 or Rebirth, or when everybody's still alive is pretty much what it's going to be, and everybody's young and vibrant and nobody remembers 5G. And you know what? That's when you bring back Alfred, and that's when you pick and choose whatever was actually good from 5G somehow makes it back or whatever. And God, so I highly expect Alfred. Yeah, I highly expect Alfred not to be dead forever. And I will make this promise right now. If I become the Batman writer and he's still not back somehow, I will bring him back to you guys. That's what will happen. And he won't be in AI form, that's Clay's prediction to be in 5G, that Alfred would actually be AI. We got a sneak peek of that in Batman Metal, that he just turned out to be a crazy AI and killed everybody. Yeah. But it was still pretty awesome. But yeah, if they wanted to make Alfred AI, I'd be totally down with that. Like if he's just still helping Bruce somehow with his voice and all that stuff, I think that would be pretty awesome. But overall, there wasn't a lot of Batman going on this week, but I'm just happy we got 83, and we only have 2 issues left in Tom King's main title Batman run. Yeah. And then there's no Tom King Batman for 2 to 3 months. We haven't got a date when Batcat comes out officially yet. We're assuming March.
Yeah, we're assuming March, but we'll see.
Yeah, and then, we'll go from there. He is doing something with Watchmen, so maybe there'll be some Batman in there, but I don't know when that comes out. I don't know if that comes out right after the button. I don't know who's drawing that. He hasn't said anything.
We know that Doomsday Clock 12 is coming out December 12th or December 18th, one of those two. So possibly just like a one-shot. It is something that could possibly tie into Doomsday Clock, but we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But that is basically everything we got for you, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say thank you to everybody that's been watching us for 15 weeks
listening.
Now. Listening, whatever. Well, technically, you could be watching a just thumbnail on YouTube. So if you wanted to do that. But whether you're listening on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on, or on YouTube, we really appreciate you guys. Remember, you can hit us up on our social medias. You can find those in the descriptions of the podcast or the YouTube videos. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, he is Fanboy Clay. I am Juice Wayne. Remember, when you wake up in the morning, ask yourself something. I'm a daily dose of juice. See you guys next time.
I think the girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. I think the girls with their nails done.